Am I the asshole for publicly calling out my neighbor's noisy nighttime activities? Hi, my name is Anna, and I have just moved into a cozy new apartment in a charming neighborhood. The streets were lined with trees, the air was fresh, and the neighbors greeted me with warm smiles. Everything seemed perfect, and for the first few weeks, I reveled in my newfound peace. One evening, while reading in bed, I heard muffled noises through the wall. Laughter, a thump, and what sounded like a rhythmic creak. At first, I chuckled to myself, realizing my neighbors were having a lively night. The situation was amusing, even endearing, a sign of life in my otherwise quiet surroundings. A week later, after a lovely dinner out, I returned home with my date, Mark. We settled onto the couch with glasses of wine, sharing stories and laughter. Just as the mood turned romantic, the now familiar sounds began again. Rhythmic creaks, muffled moans, and occasional bursts of laughter echoed through the ceiling. Mark raised an eyebrow, smirking.
Is that what I think it is?
I laughed, my cheeks reddening. It happens every couple of nights. They're, very enthusiastic.
Well,
Mark leaned in with a playful grin.
maybe we shouldn't let them have all the fun.
I giggled, and soon our laughter gave way to a night of our own romantic escapades. The noises above faded into the background, momentarily unimportant. As the weeks passed, however, the nightly disturbances became less amusing. The sounds grew louder and more frequent, often waking me in the middle of the night. What once was an occasional muffled noise had escalated into thudding that seemed to shake the ceiling, interspersed with bursts of laughter and uncomfortably audible groans. I struggled to focus on my favorite book, my attention yanked away by the incessant creaks. Watching a quiet movie was impossible without cranking up the volume, which only irritated me further. Even my attempts to work from home were disrupted as the rhythmic noises punctuated my concentration like a relentless metronome. Each sleepless night began to chip away at my patience. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, unable to block out the noise even with earplugs or white noise machines. On several occasions, I angrily tapped my broomstick against the ceiling in a futile attempt to silence them, only to be met with a brief pause before the sounds resumed. One particularly exhausting night, after yet another stretch of interrupted sleep, I decided I'd had enough. Armed with a newfound determination and fueled by frustration, I resolved to uncover the source of the noise. I began my investigation with subtlety, standing in the hallway at odd hours to listen and engaging my neighbors in casual conversations under the guise of friendliness. I learned which apartments were occupied, which neighbors worked late shifts, and which ones seemed unlikely to host such spirited nocturnal activities. Eventually, I pinpointed the culprits, a young couple living in the apartment directly above mine. The realization filled me with both relief and dread. Relieved to have a concrete answer, I now faced the daunting task of addressing the issue. Summoning my courage, I rehearsed potential ways to broach the topic, my thoughts cycling between nervous embarrassment and simmering frustration. However, before I could gather the nerve to act, another particularly raucous night, this one lasting until nearly dawn, pushed me over the edge. The next morning, I knocked on the upstairs neighbor's door. A woman in her late 20s answered, her face lighting up with a polite smile.
Hi, can I help you?
I hesitated, my cheeks burning. Hi, I wanted to talk to you about something sensitive. The woman's smile faltered slightly.
Okay?
Well, the walls here are pretty thin, and I've been hearing, noises at night. It's been hard to sleep, I said, my words tumbling out in a rush. The woman's face flushed bright red.
Noises from us?
She crossed her arms defensively.
I don't think that's any of your business.
I'm not trying to pry, I said quickly. I was hoping you might be able to keep it down a bit. The neighbor's eyes narrowed.
What happens in my apartment is my private life. Maybe you should mind your own.
She slammed the door before I could respond. For a few blissful days, the nights were silent. I allowed myself to hope that the problem had resolved itself, imagining my upstairs neighbors engaging in yoga or meditation instead of their usual nocturnal antics. But within a week, the noises resumed with a vengeance, louder and more relentless than ever. The creaks now sounded like a herd of elephants performing a dance routine, punctuated by unmistakable giggles and passionate exclamations. My ceiling fan wobbled in protest, as if it, too, were fed up with the nightly circus. I tried everything to block the sounds: white noise apps, earplugs, even an ill-fated experiment with noise-canceling headphones. But nothing could drown out the increasingly dramatic soundtrack of 4A's nightly escapades. The blissful silence had been a mirage, and I found myself spiraling back into sleepless frustration, questioning if peace and quiet were too much to ask. Frustrated and sleep-deprived, I decided to take a different approach. I have penned a note. To the neighbors in apartment 4A, I'm writing to address a recurring issue that's becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The walls in this building are quite thin, and your nighttime activities, which I'm sure are very enjoyable for you, have been disrupting my ability to sleep, work, and generally enjoy my home. The sounds travel clearly through the ceiling, and while I'm all for people expressing their passion, it's reached a point where it's impossible to block out. Please keep in mind that others in the building also have to live here, including families with young children who might overhear these noises. It's not exactly a suitable soundtrack for them, or for anyone trying to get a good night's rest. I'm kindly asking if you could take steps to minimize the noise, perhaps rearranging furniture, adding rugs, or just keeping the volume down. It would make a world of difference for your neighbors and their sleep schedules. Thank you for your understanding, your neighbor. I pinned the note to the bulletin board in the lobby, hoping it would convey my message tactfully. Later that day, there was a loud knock at my door. When I opened it, the woman from upstairs stood fuming, the note clenched in her hand.
How dare you post this for everyone to see?
The neighbor spat.
You've humiliated me.
I blinked, caught off guard by the outburst. I wasn't trying to humiliate you. I just didn't know how else to handle this.
Handle what, my personal life?
The woman's voice rose.
You're just bitter and jealous because I have a happy relationship and you don't.
I felt my own temper flare. This isn't about jealousy. It's about common courtesy. I'm asking for a little peace and quiet in my own home.
You've made me a laughingstock.
The woman shot back, tears welling in her eyes.
I can't even look the other neighbors in the eye now.
Before I could respond, the woman stormed off, leaving me standing in the doorway, bewildered. Over the next few days, I noticed amused glances from other neighbors and overheard snippets of conversations in the lobby. While some seemed to sympathize with my plight, others found the situation entertaining. One elderly neighbor chuckled as he passed her in the hallway.
Well, you've certainly spiced things up around here,
He said with a wink. Despite the awkwardness, I felt a small sense of vindication knowing I wasn't alone in my frustrations. Yet, I couldn't shake the lingering guilt over the public fallout. So, am I the asshole for publicly calling out my neighbor's noisy nighttime activities?